Here's a Renaissance fact that'll ruin your next museum visit. While Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, most Europeans went their entire lives without ever washing their hair. Their shampoo? A mixture of urine and ash. Tonight, we're exposing the brutal reality behind the art. Where streets ran with sewage, average life expectancy was 30, and morning breath could knock out a horse. This isn't the polished Renaissance of your history books. Dim the lights and prepare for the truth about surviving Europe's golden age. Let me know in comments. Would you trade modern life for one day in 1500? Your first waking moment in Renaissance Europe hits you like a punch to the face. You're not in a bedroom. You're in a box, barely larger than a modern closet, sharing the space with chickens, fleas, and probably your entire extended family. That cozy image of a 4-poster bed with curtains, that's for nobles. Your sleeping arrangements consist of a moldy straw mat crawling with lice placed directly on a dirt floor that's never been cleaned. You'll notice the cold first. Cracks between the wall timbers let in freezing drafts year-round because insulation hasn't been invented yet. There's no chimney, just a smoke hole in the roof that does nothing to remove the soot coating every surface. The walls might have a thin layer of wattle and daub, but it crumbles at the slightest touch. Historical reconstruction shows these hovels were so cramped that families often slept sitting upright, partly from lack of space, partly because lying down made you vulnerable to nighttime intruders. Privacy doesn't exist. You'll wake up pressed against siblings, parents, maybe even the family pig. Most peasants only owned one set of clothes, so everyone sleeps naked in a tangle of unwashed limbs. That tingling sensation on your legs, those are flea bites. You'll average about 50 new ones per night. If you're unlucky, rats might nibble on toes while you sleep. They'll be the only ones getting a decent meal. The smell defies modern description. Imagine months of unwashed bodies stewing in their own sweat. Add rotting straw mattress stuffing, chicken droppings that never get cleaned, and the distinctive tang of fermenting chamber pots that everyone's too tired to empty. Your nose would register this stench before your brain processed you were awake. Contemporary descriptions mention that visitors could smell peasant homes from 20 feet away. You might think you could escape outside, but dawn brings no relief. Those romantic thatched roofs you see in paintings, they're basically high-rise apartments for rodents and insects. The average peasant home housed at least 6 species of parasite, year-round. Any blankets you own are scratchy wool that hasn't been washed since harvest season, and they move on their own from all the organisms living in them. Forget cozying up in bed on a cold morning. Your fire went out hours ago because no one could stay awake to tend it. The idea of a fire guard didn't exist, so many families slept next to smoldering embers that regularly burned houses down. If you're extremely wealthy, you might own a wooden chest to store your single change of clothes, but it also serves as your table, chair, and baby's cradle. The single window, if you're lucky enough to have one, is just a hole covered with greased parchment that turns midday into twilight. You'll wake with dirt in your mouth from the dust drifting down through the ceiling all night. Historians estimate the average peasant inhaled about a tablespoon of soil particulate daily just from sleeping. Your sleeping conditions make modern camping look like a 5-star hotel. At least campers get sleeping bags without resident parasites and tents that don't actively try to give them pneumonia. Next time you complain about a bad mattress, remember that Renaissance Europeans considered a pile of mildewed straw the height of bedroom luxury. But the makeshift bed is the least of your worries. The moment you sit up, a new set of Renaissance miseries begins. You're about to experience morning hygiene practices that make sleeping in flea-infested straw seem downright pleasant by comparison. Let's just say the concept of toothpaste hasn't been invented yet, and personal space is about to take on horrific new meaning. Your morning hygiene routine begins with spitting into a shared bucket. There's no toothbrush waiting for you, Those won't exist for another 300 years. Your teeth are already black with decay by your early 20s, and your gums bleed when you chew. If you're wealthy, you might rinse your mouth with vinegar. More likely, you'll just wipe your face with the same dirty sleeve you've worn for months. The concept of brushing teeth doesn't register in Renaissance Europe. Instead, you chew on twigs if you're feeling fancy. Your breath smells like rotting meat because everyone's does. Historical accounts describe toothaches as a leading cause of suicide. The pain drives people to desperate measures. Some try pulling their own teeth with pliers. Barber surgeons offer the professional solution: iron hooks and no anesthesia. They'll yank out the offending tooth by candlelight, often taking chunks of jawbone with it. Your mouth is a breeding ground for infection. Cavities turn into abscesses that swell your face shut. Without antibiotics, these infections regularly kill people. The lucky ones just lose teeth. By age 30, you'll be missing at least half of yours. The remaining teeth are yellow-brown stumps that ache constantly. Chewing becomes difficult, so you swallow food in chunks. This gives you chronic indigestion that adds to your misery. Bad breath isn't just unpleasant. It's a social liability. Kissing becomes a game of Russian roulette. You might try covering the stench with herbs, but it's like spraying perfume on a landfill. Contemporary writers describe halitosis so strong it could make people faint. Smiling openly gets you shunned, not just because it's unattractive, but because it's considered vulgar to show rotten teeth. Portraits from the era show people with tight-lipped expressions for good reason. Face washing is equally grim. You might use the same bucket of water the whole family shares, now floating with hair and skin flakes. Soap exists, but it's made from animal fat and lye that burns your skin. Most people just rub their faces with dry cloth until the visible dirt comes off. Ears and necks rarely get cleaned at all. The buildup of dead skin and oils creates a permanent grime layer that smells like old cheese. Body odor would knock over a modern person. Deodorant won't be invented for centuries. You sweat into the same wool clothes day after day, month after month. The fibers absorb your stench permanently. Wealthy people try covering the smell with perfumes, but these just create a sickly sweet layer over the underlying rot. Poor people don't bother. They just accept that everyone reeks equally. Hair care consists of scratching your scalp and hoping the lice stay quiet. Washing hair with urine and ash happens maybe twice a year. The rest of the time, your scalp itches constantly from built-up oils and parasites. Dandruff flakes coat your shoulders like snow. Hairstyles become elaborate, not for fashion, but to hide the grease and sores underneath. Wigs grow popular because they can be taken off and deloused separately. Nails are dirt traps that never get properly cleaned. You bite them off when they get too long, swallowing whatever grime has collected underneath. Black crescents of filth become permanent fixtures. Hands show the stains of years' worth of accumulated dirt ground into the skin. The idea of a manicure would make Renaissance people laugh. Why bother cleaning something that will just get dirty again tomorrow? Shaving is a bloody ordeal performed with dull blades. Most men grow beards to avoid the weekly torture. When you do shave, the barber uses the same razor on everyone without cleaning it. Cuts frequently become infected. Women don't fare better. They pluck hairlines with tweezers until their foreheads bleed, all to achieve the fashionable highbrow look. Your morning bathroom routine happens in a chamber pot that hasn't been emptied in days. There's no toilet paper. You wipe with whatever's handy, usually old rags or straw. These get reused until they fall apart. Hands don't get washed afterward because no one connects filth with disease yet. You'll eat breakfast with the same fingers that just wiped your backside. The cumulative effect would gag a modern person. Standing near a Renaissance European in the morning would assault your nose with layers of halitosis, body odor, and fecal particles. People become nose-blind to it over time, but visitors from cleaner cultures wrote horrified accounts of the stench. What we consider basic hygiene would seem like extravagant vanity to them. Now comes the real test of your Renaissance constitution: breakfast. The meal waiting for you makes modern food poisoning look mild by comparison. That stale bread floating in weak beer contains ingredients that would make a FDA inspector faint. You're about to learn why Renaissance cuisine was less about flavor and more about not dying before noon. Your breakfast in Renaissance Europe is a lesson in desperation. That hunk of bread you're gnawing on? It's likely made with sawdust or ground acorns mixed into the flour. Bakers routinely adulterated their goods to stretch supplies, leaving you with a loaf that's more filler than food. The texture resembles wet cardboard, and it takes serious jaw strength to tear off chunks. If you're lucky, the bread isn't moldy yet, but you eat it anyway because hunger outweighs the risk. You dip the bread in weak beer because water could kill you. Every sip of untreated water might carry dysentery or other diseases, so even children drink this thin, sour ale. It has barely any alcohol, just enough to make the liquid safer than the local water sources. Your wooden bowl holds about a pint of the stuff, cloudy and lukewarm. It's not refreshing, but it stops your stomach from cramping with dehydration. Historians estimate the average peasant drank over a gallon of beer daily just to stay hydrated. If you're extremely fortunate, there might be rancid butter to spread. Dairy spoils fast without refrigeration, so your butter often tastes like old cheese mixed with dirt. You learn to ignore the faint blue streaks because throwing it away means going hungry. Some days there's pottage, a thick gruel of oats or barley simmered with whatever vegetables survived the winter. The flavor resembles wet burlap sprinkled with sadness. Meat appears maybe once a month if your lord feels generous. What little you get is tough and stringy, from animals that died of disease rather than proper slaughter. You chew each bite carefully, picking gristle from your teeth afterwards. Bacon exists, but it's salted to the point of being inedible unless boiled for hours. Fish might come your way if you live near water, but it's usually dried and crawling with weevils by the time it reaches you. Spices like pepper or cinnamon might as well be gold. Only nobles can afford them, so your food tastes bland at best, spoiled at worst. Salt costs enough that you use it sparingly, and sugar exists only in wealthy households. Your morning meal provides barely enough energy to stand up, let alone work a full day in the fields. Modern nutritionists would say you're operating at a constant calorie deficit. Forget variety. You eat the same few ingredients prepared the same few ways every single day. Breakfast barely differs from lunch or dinner. Seasonal changes mean winter brings nothing but preserved foods crawling with mold, while summer offers slightly more options before they rot in the heat. Your body craves nutrients it never receives, leaving you weak and prone to illness. Children get watered-down versions of the same miserable diet. Their beer has less alcohol, their bread portions smaller. Many show signs of rickets from vitamin deficiencies. Nursing mothers struggle to produce milk because they're barely nourished themselves. Old people waste away faster when their teeth can't handle the tough bread anymore. Food preparation adds its own dangers. That communal stew pot simmering over the fire, it hasn't been properly cleaned in living memory. Whatever bacteria grows in there becomes part of your meager nutrition. Cutting surfaces carry traces of every meal prepared on them for years. Utensils get wiped on dirty clothes between uses at best. Starvation looms constantly. A bad harvest means months of scraping by on moldy grain stores. Some families resort to eating tree bark or grass when supplies run low. Historical accounts describe peasants boiling leather belts for nutrition during famines. The concept of 3 meals a day doesn't exist. You eat when food is available and endure when it's not. Your digestive system rebels constantly. Between the spoiled ingredients and lack of sanitation, stomach pains become routine. Diarrhea strikes frequently, dehydrating you further. Tapeworms and other parasites flourish in your weakened body. Meal times bring no pleasure, just the grim calculation of how much longer these scraps can keep you upright. Wealthy households don't fare much better. Their fancier foods introduce new hazards. Lead in their pewter plates contaminates every bite, while sugary treats rot their teeth faster. Rich and poor alike face chronic malnutrition, just with different presentations. Those lavish Renaissance feasts you've heard about? They happened maybe twice a year for special occasions, sandwiched between months of deprivation. Your breakfast won't fuel much productivity, but fields don't plow themselves. That stale bread and sour beer must power you through 14 hours of back-breaking labor. You swallow the last bite knowing full well it won't be enough, but also that this might be the best food you get all day. At least hunger dulls your awareness of the overwhelming stench around you as you step outside into streets literally flowing with human waste. The moment you step outside, your shoes sink into what looks like mud, but definitely isn't mud. Renaissance streets are basically open sewers where everything ends up. Human waste, animal corpses, rotting food, and mystery liquids all mixed together into a charming brown sludge. Within 10 steps, you'll have soaked through your shoes with things you don't want to think about. Contemporary accounts describe these streets as charming river of human waste, animal droppings, and mystery liquids, and they're not joking. Walking anywhere requires constant vigilance. Someone above you might shout "Gardaloo" before dumping their chamber pot out the window, but often they don't bother warning you. You learn to hug the sides of buildings, where the overhangs provide minimal protection. Still, getting splashed is inevitable. The contents of last night's dinner and digestion regularly rain down on your head and shoulders. There are no street cleaners. The occasional heavy rain is the closest thing to sanitation the city gets. The smell hits like a physical force at first. Imagine every bad odor you've ever experienced: rotting meat, sewage, vomit, all concentrated into one overwhelming wave that makes your eyes water. Surprisingly, you'll stop noticing it within an hour, not because it goes away, but because your nose shuts down in self-defense. Visitors from cleaner areas wrote horrified accounts of the stench that locals didn't even register anymore. Navigation becomes a puzzle after rain. What were dusty lanes yesterday are now ankle-deep in muck that sucks at your shoes with each step. You'd think the wealthy would have it better, but their fine leather boots get ruined faster than peasant clogs. The streets slope toward the center where the worst filth collects, forcing you to walk through it unless you want to press against buildings where more waste falls from above. Animals add to the chaos. Stray dogs root through piles of refuse while pigs that should be in pens roam freely, chewing on things you don't want to identify. Dead animals sometimes lie where they fell for days before someone drags them away. Flies swarm everywhere, landing on food and faces with equal enthusiasm. Come summer, mosquitoes rise from stagnant puddles to spread disease. Public latrines exist, but offer zero privacy. Just rows of holes over a cesspit with no partitions. Ironically, these might be cleaner than the streets, since some actually get emptied occasionally. but the stench inside could knock over a horse, and the buzzing cloud of flies never dissipates. Most people prefer to just find an alleyway rather than navigate slippery wooden benches crawling with rats. Your commute involves constant hazards beyond the filth. Street lighting doesn't exist, forcing you to step carefully, even at midday in narrow lanes where buildings block sunlight. Robbers wait around corners, knowing victims will be distracted, avoiding piles of waste. The rare raised sidewalk exists only on major streets, forcing constant jumps between islands of relative cleanliness. Water sources aren't safe either. Most wells sit downstream from the same streets polluted with waste, leaving drinking water that's teeming with parasites and filth, according to contemporary accounts. Wealthy households might have cisterns, but the poor drink whatever brownish liquid they can get, preferring weak beer when available. Children play in this filth barefoot, their small bodies collecting diseases like souvenirs. Women's long skirts become mop heads trailing through the muck, spreading whatever they picked up inside homes. Men's boots track in waste that dries and becomes house dust you eventually breathe in. There's no escape from contamination. It permeates everything. The wealthy try insulating themselves, but fail. Their coach wheels fling sewage onto velvet curtains when they venture out. Perfumed handkerchiefs pressed to noses do little against odors strong enough to penetrate stone walls. Even their homes contain chamber pots emptied by servants into the same streets, poisoning everyone. Market days make things worse. Hundreds of extra people crowd streets already at capacity, their animals adding fresh waste to the mix. Butchers toss spoiled meat into alleys while fishmongers leave guts to rot in the sun. The air hangs thick with flies and smoke from cooking fires, trying to mask the smells. Disease walks alongside everyone. That puddle you stepped in might contain cholera. Those flies landing on your bread came from corpses. The cut on your hand could become infected just from the air. No one connects the filth to illness yet, so the cycle continues unbroken year after year. Death carts make regular rounds picking up plague victims, their wheels leaving tracks through waste that will soon claim more lives. Grave diggers work non-stop but can't keep up. Sometimes bodies lie in streets for days alongside animal corpses. Everyone walks past without reacting. It's just part of city life. Your workplace awaits at the end of this obstacle course, offering no real refuge. Whether it's a shop, field, or workshop, the same filth follows you inside. Hands don't get washed before handling goods or food. Flies move freely between street waste and dinner tables. The concept of hygiene doesn't exist here. Survival is hard enough without worrying about invisible threats. Your workday begins before sunrise and won't end until long after sunset. That's 14 hours of constant labor on an empty stomach with hands already cracked and bleeding from yesterday's work. There are no safety regulations here, no worker protections, and certainly no HR department to complain to. You'll work until your body gives out or the light fades, whichever comes first. If you're a farmer, you spend every daylight hour bent double in fields that never seem to end. There are no tractors here, just an ox if you're fortunate, or your own raw muscle power if you're not. Plow blades catch on roots and send you sprawling face first into dirt that's been fertilized with human waste. Weeding means crawling on hands and knees through mud and insects with no gloves to protect your skin. Every joint screams in protest, but stopping means your family starves come winter. Artisans don't fare much better. That blacksmith's hammer you're swinging will slip eventually, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. When it does, you'll lose fingers to the anvil or burns that never heal right. Tailors hunch over needlework until their spines curve permanently. Cobblers inhale toxic glue fumes that rot their lungs. Workshop floors are littered with the tools of each trade, any one of which could maim you if you're tired enough to get careless, which you will be. Children work alongside adults because everyone must contribute. 6-year-olds mind livestock in fields where wolves still roam. 8-year-olds turn spits in front of roaring fires, their faces blistering from the heat. 10-year-olds haul water from distant wells in buckets too heavy for their small frames. There's no such thing as child labor laws, only hungry mouths to feed. Playtime is a luxury no peasant family can afford. Your body never gets a chance to recover. Sundays are for church, not rest. And religious holidays just mean different kinds of work. There are no weekends, no vacations, no sick days. If you wake up coughing blood, you still plow the field. If your back gives out, you tie it with rags and keep going. The only reprieve comes when fever finally knocks you unconscious. And even then, someone will shake you awake at dawn. The tools alone would break modern workers. Rusty scythes tear at wheat stalks and your palms simultaneously. Plows need your full weight behind them just to break the hard earth. Wooden buckets with jagged edges dig into your fingers every time you draw water. Everything is heavier, clumsier, and more dangerous than its modern equivalent. There's no ergonomic design. Just whatever gets the job done, even if it cripples you in the process. Conditions vary by season, but never improve. Summer means sweltering in fields with the sun baking your bare neck. Winter has you chopping wood with numb fingers that could snap off without you noticing. Spring brings floods that turn fields into swamps you must drain by hand. Autumn's harvest demands you work from first light until your hands are too cramped to hold a sickle. There's always more to do, and never enough time or strength to do it. Artisans indoors don't escape the grind. Candle makers stand over vats of boiling tallow that could melt skin. Leather workers inhale toxic tannin fumes in airless workshops. Masons lift stone blocks that would require machinery today. Every craft comes with its own slow death. Lung disease for weavers, lead poisoning for glazers, crushed limbs for carpenters. Guild records overflow with accounts of craftsmen crippled by their trades. Even light work takes its toll. Spinning thread deforms women's spines after years of hunching. Kitchen work leaves servants with burns covering their arms. Messengers wear out their legs running barefoot over rough roads. Shepherds go half mad from years of solitude. There's no easy job, just varying degrees of suffering. Your occupation chooses which parts of your body will fail first. Pain becomes your constant companion. Hands cramp permanently into claws from gripping tools. Knees swell like overripe fruit from years of kneeling. Backs curve like old trees from constant bending. The wealthy might call for physicians when they ache, but you work through the pain until something breaks beyond repair. Most peasants develop a distinctive limp by 30, if they live that long. Rest is just work in another form. Time off means mending your own tools or fixing your crumbling house. Women cook, clean, and make clothes during every free moment. Men patch roofs or dig privies when field work ends. Children gather firewood or tend to younger siblings. Sleep is the only real break you get, and even that happens on a lice-infested pile of straw that leaves you stiff and sore. Modern workers would collapse by noon. Your latte-sipping hands couldn't grip a scythe for 10 minutes without blisters. Your ergonomic chair back would give out after an hour of threshing. Your climate-controlled office body would overheat in the fields or freeze in unheated workshops. Today's labor laws require breaks that Renaissance workers never dreamed of. Their bodies were the only machines they had, and they ran them into the ground. But enough about work. It's almost time for lunch. Another meal that's barely food, eaten in the dirt with hands too filthy to wash. The bread might be moldy again. The beer, more sour than usual. You'll wolf it down quickly because the fields won't plow themselves. At least the taste will distract you from wondering if the pain in your gut is hunger or something worse. The midday meal might be your only hot food all day, and it's probably trying to kill you. That suspicious meat in your stew didn't come from a healthy animal. It's from livestock that died of disease and got sold cheap at market. No one checks food safety in Renaissance Europe, so butchers routinely pass off rotting meat as fresh. Your lunch could contain tuberculosis from infected cows or parasites from undercooked pork. There's no way to tell until the stomach cramps start. Your bread comes with more than just grains. Bakers mix in sawdust, ground up acorns, or even clay to stretch their flour supplies. The dark rye bread popular with peasants hides another danger: ergot fungus that grows on damp grain. It's like eating bread laced with LSD and tetanus. Whole villages have hallucinated and convulsed after bad harvests. Even when the bread isn't poisonous, it's often moldy or full of weevils. You pick out the biggest bugs and eat it anyway because hunger wins over disgust. Food preservation doesn't really exist. That salt pork in your pot has been sitting uncovered for weeks, collecting flies. Fish arrives at inland markets half rotten after days without ice. Vegetables wilt in the heat before they reach your bowl. Everything gets cooked thoroughly, not for taste, but because it might literally kill you otherwise. Spoiled food gets, quote, refreshed with vinegar or spices instead of being thrown out. Wealthy households can afford fresher ingredients, but even their kitchens serve meat that would make a modern person gag. Market stalls are breeding grounds for disease. Raw meat sits next to bread in the open air, with flies moving freely between them. Vendors handle coins and food with the same unwashed hands. Cheese forms its own ecosystem of mold cultures. Eggs might contain partially developed chicks. Honey sometimes comes with chunks of dead bees still in it. There are no health inspectors, just desperate people selling whatever won't get them chased out of town. Your meal tastes like hopelessness. A pinch of pepper costs more than your monthly wages, so your food is either bland or seasoned with whatever bitter herbs grow nearby. That grayish broth floating with mystery meat chunks has no resemblance to modern stew. The texture alone would make most people today lose their appetite. Gristle, bone fragments, and unidentifiable vegetables boiled into submission. You swallow it quickly because it's fuel, not pleasure. Drinks offer no relief. Your beer has been sitting in a dirty barrel for months, developing flavors no modern brewery would allow. Water comes from the same contaminated sources that run through open sewers. Milk sours within hours in the summer heat. Even wine often turns to vinegar before it reaches your table. You drink whatever liquid won't give you immediate diarrhea, regardless of taste. Food poisoning isn't an occasional inconvenience. It's a regular occurrence. Whole families spend nights vomiting from spoiled meat or contaminated grain. Children die from dysentery after drinking tainted milk. The wealthy aren't immune. Their elaborate feasts just give them more opportunities to ingest something deadly. Doctors don't understand foodborne illness, so they blame it on bad humors or divine punishment. There's no treatment except waiting to see if you survive. Urban workers get the worst of it. Country peasants at least have gardens and know where their food comes from. City dwellers rely on dishonest markets where every ingredient has been tampered with for profit. Many workers only get one proper meal at midday, forcing them to scarf down whatever questionable slop they can afford. The rest of the day runs on stale bread and prayers. Food-related diseases shape entire lives. Tapeworms from undercooked meat live in your intestines for years. Scurvy from lack of vegetables makes your teeth fall out. Rickets from poor nutrition bends children's bones. But you can't be picky. Any calories are good calories when starvation looms. You eat things that would make a vulture think twice, because the alternative is collapsing at your plow. When lunch ends, you're somehow both bloated and still hungry. The meager nutrients barely offset the morning's labor, let alone prepare you for the afternoon's work. Your stomach gurgles ominously. Is that normal digestion, or the first sign of another bout of food poisoning? Only time will tell. Right now, there are fields to tend, tools to wield, and new ways to injure yourself waiting just outside. That mysterious ache in your side will have to wait. The pigs need feeding, and the sun won't stay up forever. That splinter you got from the plow this morning, it could kill you by sundown. In Renaissance Europe, there's no such thing as a minor injury. A paper cut can turn into gangrene. A twisted ankle leads to a fracture that never heals right. Every scrape carries the potential for a fatal infection. Because antiseptics won't be invented for another 300 years, your first stop for medical care is the barber surgeon. Yes, the same guy who just shaved someone's beard with that knife. He'll diagnose you according to the humoral theory, which claims sickness comes from bad juice in your blood. His solution? More bloodletting. He uses leeches or makes incisions with an unwashed blade that's been dropped in the dirt more times than you can count. The treatment often makes you weaker than the original illness. Wounds fester within hours in this environment. That tiny cut from sharpening tools turns angry red by afternoon. Pus forms overnight. The infection spreads up your arm in red streaks, while the barber surgeon blames bad humors. Your fever spikes as your body loses the battle against bacteria no one can see. Amputation might save you, but there's no anesthesia. Just a strong drink and a leather strap to bite down on during the screaming. Childbirth is worse. 1 in 5 women die bringing life into this world. Midwives have good intentions, but no sterile tools. They reach in with dirty hands to pull stuck babies free. Infections set in quickly after birth, turning what should be a happy time into a death watch. Hemorrhaging means certain death. No transfusions, no stitches that would actually help. Women approach each pregnancy knowing it might be their last. Broken bones often never heal properly. Without x-rays, the barber surgeon just guesses how to set them. He might wrap your limb in filthy rags or dunk it in warm water for therapy. If you're lucky, you'll just limp forever. If not, gangrene sets in and they take the whole limb while you're conscious and screaming. Historical accounts describe medieval surgery as surviving the cure rather than actual healing. Toothaches drive people to suicide. The same barber surgeon who cut your hair yanks teeth out with iron hooks while helpers hold you down. No painkillers, no cleaning the tools between patients. The procedure sends shards of infected bone into your bloodstream, sometimes causing sepsis that kills you slowly. Those who can't afford the extraction just endure the pain until the tooth rots out or the infection reaches their brain. Medicines do more harm than good. Doctors prescribe mercury for syphilis, which poisons you slowly. They recommend powdered mummy, a substance made from ground-up Egyptian corpses for various ailments. Your treatment for a headache might involve drinking vinegar with crushed earthworms or having hot irons applied to your forehead. Most remedies either do nothing or actively make you sicker. Even hospitals are death traps. They cram the sick together in filthy beds with no ventilation. Your bedmate might have plague while you're there for a broken finger. Nurses change wound dressings with unwashed hands, while rats scurry across the floor. More people catch diseases in hospitals than get cured there. The wealthy prefer to be treated at home, but peasants have no choice. Child mortality numbers are staggering. Half of all children die before age 5 from illnesses we now prevent with vaccines. Fevers rage unchecked through villages, leaving graveyards full of small bodies. Parents expect to bury some of their children. It's just part of life. Those who survive face malnutrition and back-breaking work before they reach puberty. The lack of germ theory means no one connects filth with disease. Your doctor doesn't wash his hands between patients because no one knows they should. He might bleed someone with plague, then lance your boil with the same knife. Operations happen on wooden tables soaked with old blood from previous patients. Bandages get reused until they fall apart, transferring infections between wounds. Mental illness gets the cruelest treatments of all. The mad get locked in cages or chained in cellars. Treatments include beatings, starvation, or drilling holes in skulls to let out evil spirits. Depressed people face public mockery or violent shock therapies involving near drowning. There's no understanding or compassion, just fear of anything different. The wealthy get no better care, just fancier versions of the same dangerous treatments. Kings die from the same infected cuts as peasants, just on silk sheets instead of straw. Noble women perish in childbirth, attended by physicians rather than midwives, with equal results. Lead makeup and mercury-laden beauty treatments slowly poison the upper classes, while the poor die from simpler neglect. Pain is constant for everyone. Migraines have no effective treatment beyond darkness and prayers. Arthritis slowly cripples older workers who can't afford to stop laboring. Untreated hernias leave men bedridden in agony. The lucky ones find comfort in alcohol or opium if they can get it. Most just suffer through until death finally brings relief. Your chances of reaching old age? Nearly zero. Most people die in their 30s or 40s from injuries and illnesses that wouldn't faze modern medicine. The few who survive longer do so with bodies broken by decades of hardship. Every birthday isn't a celebration. It's a small miracle you didn't die yet. As evening falls, your wounds throb along with your aching muscles. Maybe today's cut stays clean, or maybe the fever hits by morning. You've seen neighbors die from less. There's nothing to do but wait and hope your immune system can fight what medicine can't even understand. At least, darkness hides the fear on your face as you settle onto your lice-ridden straw, dreading what new pain tomorrow might bring. Rats begin their night shift as soon as the sun goes down. You hear them skittering across the floor, chewing through your meager food stores. Their droppings mix with the dirt and straw. Sometimes bold ones run across your bed while you sleep. Trying to save food is pointless. They'll gnaw through baskets, sacks, even thin wooden containers. The constant scratching in the walls makes it hard to sleep, but that's the least of your worries tonight. Candles cost more than you make in a week. Most evenings pass in near total darkness once the fire burns low. The dim glow might reveal shapes, but not details. Is that shadow by the door just a cloak hanging wrong? Or someone waiting to strike? You can't tell, and lighting another rushlight would use up precious tallow your family needs for cooking. The darkness isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Home invasions happen regularly. Thieves target the poor as often as the rich because everyone has something worth stealing. Loaves of bread, cooking pots, wool blankets. There's no police force to call. Night watchmen exist in cities, but they're often drunk or paid to look the other way. If someone breaks in, you're on your own. Historical accounts describe entire families robbed of their winter stores while they slept just feet away. The noises outside keep you tense. Every creak could be a footstep. Every rustle might be someone testing your door. Distant shouts echo through the streets. Maybe a brawl, maybe an assault. You never know. Wealthy households hire guards, but you can't afford that luxury. Your best defense is convincing thieves there's nothing worth stealing in your hovel. Children huddle close at night, sensing the danger without understanding it. They've heard stories of kids snatched from beds to work as beggars, or worse. Families sometimes chain young children to beds at night, not to be cruel, but because they know how easy it would be to lose them. The practice was common enough that it appears in multiple historical records from the period. Your bedding offers no comfort. Straw crunches under your back, poking through the thin blanket. The night air carries every sound from neighboring homes. Arguments, weeping, lovemaking, coughing. Privacy doesn't exist when walls are thin and entire families share one room. What little sleep you get comes in fits and starts, interrupted by itching flea bites and sudden noises outside. The cold seeps in after midnight. Your meager fire burned out hours ago, leaving the room chilled. Winter nights are the worst. Frost forms on the inside walls by morning. Some days you wake to find your washing water frozen solid in its bucket. Pneumonia kills more people than sword fights during these months, and you can feel why as the damp cold settles into your bones. Dawn brings little relief. Morning light reveals what the darkness hid. Rat droppings in the food supplies, muddy footprints near the doorway that weren't there yesterday. The unlocked chest where you keep your good shoes sits slightly open, though you could swear you closed it. Someone was inside during the night, taking only trifles this time. You're almost glad they didn't wake you during the theft. Nighttime injuries are common too. Tripping over unseen objects in the dark leaves bruises and broken toes. People walking back from taverns fall into drainage ditches and drown in 2 feet of water. Those who venture out after curfew risk being beaten by the watch or set upon by thieves. Candles cause fires that burn down entire blocks when knocked over by sleepy hands. Any of these fates could be yours tonight. The wealthy have different problems. Their sturdy doors with iron locks keep out common thieves, but make them targets for professional burglars. Servants steal silverware when the household sleeps. Gatekeepers can be bribed. Even in stone mansions, the night brings unease. No amount of money can banish the darkness completely. You lie awake, listening to the house creak. Was that the shutter moving? The scrape of metal on wood? Probably nothing. Probably. Your hand tightens around the rusty knife you keep under the straw mattress. It wouldn't stop a determined attacker, but it makes you feel slightly less vulnerable. Dawn can't come soon enough. Sleep finally takes you, just as the sky begins to lighten. Your last thought before drifting off is relief that no one broke in tonight. But tomorrow is another night, and there will be many more after that. The cycle never ends. Only the degree of danger changes. At least when you wake tomorrow, you'll only have to face the usual miseries of daylight instead of the special terrors of the night. Bedtime rituals won't improve your chances much. The straw will still itch, the cold will still bite, and the sounds outside will still set your nerves on edge. But at least lying down means you're one day closer to never having to endure another Renaissance night again. When the candle gutters out completely, leaving you in perfect blackness. That thought almost counts as comfort. Almost. Sleeping in Renaissance Europe isn't rest, it's survival. You lie down each night knowing the cold could kill you before morning. There's no central heating, no electric blankets, not even proper insulation in your flimsy wooden walls. Gaps between the beams let in freezing drafts that make the air feel alive with winter's bite. Historical records describe many who simply never woke up, succumbing to exposure in homes that offered little more shelter than a cave. Your bed makes modern camping look luxurious. That straw mattress prickles your skin through the thin blanket, while fleas plot their nighttime assault. Wool coverings should provide warmth, but they're infested with parasites that feast while you shiver. Every toss and turn sends new itch signals screaming across your body. Pulling the blanket higher just smothers you in the stench of unwashed wool and old sweat, a smell so ingrained it clings even after years. Firewood costs more than you earn in a week, so the hearth burns low most nights. By midnight, what little heat remained has fled through gaps in the walls large enough to, as contemporary sources noted, throw a chicken through. Frost creeps across the floorboards toward your sleeping mat. Your breath forms visible clouds inside your own home. Mornings find ice in your washing bucket, while stiff fingers struggle to relight the fire with damp, inferior tinder. Sharing body heat becomes necessity, not comfort. Families sleep tangled together like puppies in a litter, limbs overlapping for warmth. Parents sandwich children between them, absorbing the worst of the cold. Privacy isn't just absent, it's dangerous. Those who sleep alone risk hypothermia on winter nights when temperatures plunge below what modern refrigerators maintain. The elderly suffer worst, their slower circulation making them primary targets for the creeping chill. Bedding doubles as a pest habitat. Lice crawl through mattress straw, undisturbed by any notion of cleaning. Fleas trace marching patterns across your skin, while bed bugs drink their fill from your exhausted body. The scratchy wool blanket provides perfect nesting grounds, washed maybe once per year if you're meticulous. Morning reveals new constellations of bites across your arms and legs, each one itching with persistent malice. Livestock share your sleeping quarters if you're rural. Chickens roost overhead while goats bed down beside you, their body heat a meager trade-off for the stench and filth they bring. Peasant homes mix animal and human habitats seamlessly. There's no separate barn when survival hangs by a thread. Their waste steams in the corner while you try to sleep, the ammonia scent burning your nostrils. Pneumonia waits like a patient killer. That nagging cough from yesterday grows deeper through the night, settling into your lungs like an unwelcome tenant. The damp cold penetrates bone deep, weakening you for whatever infections float in the stale air. By dawn, your fever spikes, while family members debate whether to spare precious coins for a useless doctor. Many don't survive the week. Cold bedrooms become death chambers with shocking regularity. Children suffer most. Their small bodies lose heat faster, their immune systems less equipped for constant assault. Half of Renaissance children never reached adulthood, with winter being their most relentless executioner. Parents tell themselves it's God's will when another small grave appears, but the look in their eyes betrays primal terror that next winter might claim another. Stone mansions offer no real refuge. Nobles sleep in four-poster beds with curtains, but the chambers remain frigid year-round. Servants bank the fires all night, but heat rises to vaulted ceilings, leaving sleepers in a pocket of cold. Leaded glass windows look impressive, but conduct winter's chill directly to nearby beds. The wealthy suffer less, yet still wake to frost on their breath and blankets stiff with overnight dampness. Mattresses never dry properly. Straw holds moisture like a sponge, breeding mold spores that invade your lungs as you sleep. Down-filled bedding exists only for elites, Everyone else makes do with whatever fibrous, mildewed materials they can scrounge. Turning over releases puffs of dust and mold that tickle your throat all night. Bedtime brings a paradox. The more layers you pile on, the harder it becomes to move when danger comes. Thieves might creep through that gap in the wall while you're immobilized under heavy blankets. Fire could spark from an overturned candle while you struggle free from woolen cocoons. Every precaution against cold creates new vulnerabilities. Survival becomes a series of calculated risks where you always lose something. Morning light reveals the toll. Stiff joints protest as you rise from damp bedding. Your blanket smells fouler than yesterday. Weeks of accumulated sweat nearing some critical mass of stench. Flea bites itch in places you can't scratch in polite company. That tickle in your chest has settled into something more ominous overnight. But there's no time to dwell. Fields won't plow themselves, and hunger spares no one. Each night's dangers reset like a terrible game. Cold, pests, damp, all return with sunset to torment you anew. You'll endure the same scratching and shivering tonight, with slightly worse health than yesterday. The cycle grinds forward endlessly, wearing you down one restless night at a time until exhaustion wins, or death takes mercy. Yet dawn brings its own horrors. As the thin morning light filters through those gaps in the wall, you're about to face a Renaissance breakfast. Another exercise in culinary Russian roulette, where every bite could be your last. Spoiled meat, bread made with sawdust, and beer so weak it barely qualifies as liquid. But at least you lived through another night to taste it. Barely. The church bell wakes you before sunrise, not because you need to know the time, but because missing morning prayer is a sin. Your entire day follows the rhythm of religious obligation, from kneeling at noon to evening vespers. There are no weekends off or personal choices. Every action bends to doctrine. Historians note how villages structured life around prayer bells, with penalties for those who ignored them. Workers in fields drop tools when church bells ring. Markets close during services. Even private thoughts must align with Scripture, or at least appear to. Your chicken coop funds the church before feeding your family. The tithe system takes 1/10 of everything, not just crops and livestock, but even your few possessions. That means 4 eggs out of 40 go to the parish priest rather than your starving children. Records show priests inventorying peasant homes to ensure proper payment. Failing to contribute risks expulsion from the community, a death sentence, in a world where the church controls charity and salvation alike. Passing a neighbor on the path sparks fear, not conversation. Anyone might report you for heresy in hopes of reward or favor. Doubting transubstantiation? Accidentally eating meat on Friday. Those thoughts could land you in an inquisitor's dungeon if voiced carelessly. The church encourages this surveillance, painting dissent as contagious disease. Your safest bet is keeping eyes downcast and mouth shut. Yet even silence might be interpreted as guilt. Sunday Mass is compulsory theater. Arrive late and face public whipping. Doze off during the Latin sermon, which you can't understand anyway, and risk fines. Forget to bow before the crucifix? That's another mark against your soul, and possibly your backside. The church thrives on petty infractions, using fear of damnation to excuse earthly punishments. Your local priest likely keeps birch rods handy for immediate correction of slackers. Children learn obedience through terror. Priests describe hellfire in vivid detail. Rivers of boiling blood, demons with pitchforks, eternal screams. Kids hear these sermons from infancy, ensuring compliance before they can even grasp theology. The village might be starving, but the church ensures everyone fears spiritual starvation more than empty bellies. Literacy rates under 10% mean no one reads scripture themselves. They only get the curated horror stories priests choose to share. Death offers no escape from church control. Burial in consecrated ground requires payment. No coins, no salvation. Your grieving family must surrender their last chicken or risk your soul wandering in limbo. Wills get reviewed by priests who decide if bequests are godly enough. The wealthiest by chantries, where priests supposedly pray their souls through purgatory. But peasants just hope their meager tithes bought enough grace to avoid hell. Civic life mirrors religious hierarchy. Mayors consult priests before passing laws. Church courts handle marriage disputes, inheritance claims, even petty theft. Your local lord collects taxes, but the bishop collects souls, and woe to any noble who challenges that arrangement. Records show kings excommunicated for defying papal decrees, proving no earthly power matches the church's reach. Even warfare pauses during holy days until some bishop declares crusade against neighboring heretics. Medicine and science bow to doctrine. Physicians quote scripture before prescribing treatments, leading patients during certain moon phases, because Augustine mentioned celestial influence. Astronomy stagnates as clergy dismiss heliocentrism as heresy. Midwives risk execution if accused of witchcraft while helping births. When plague strikes, the church calls it divine punishment rather than endorsing quarantine science. Festivals provide the only pressure valve, briefly. Carnival allows raucous behavior before Lent's austerity, but even this release serves church purposes. By permitting controlled debauchery, priests reinforce the need for their rigid order. Peasants return to drudgery grateful for small mercies, like not being burned at the stake for dancing too wildly. Accounts describe how these celebrations often turned bloody, proving the church's point about human sinfulness. Your internal world isn't your own. Confession requires detailing every impure thought to a priest who decides your penance, maybe 50 lashes for imagined blasphemies. Women endure special scrutiny, with midwives interrogated about possible witchcraft during deliveries. Innkeepers must report patrons who criticize clergy. This surveillance state operates under divine mandate, making even solitude unsafe. The wealthy face different chains. Nobles pay to bend doctrine, buying annulments or pardons the poor can't afford. But their gold only purchases limited freedom, not true liberty. A merchant's daughter might enter a convent against her will to secure family status. Kings wage wars approved by bishops who take a cut of the spoils. No one escapes the system. They just suffer differently within it. Education serves indoctrination. Cathedral schools teach Latin prayers, not critical thinking. Artisans learn crafts through church-approved guilds that ban innovation. The few books available reinforce orthodoxy while banning dangerous ideas. Your worldview stretches only as far as the nearest priest's imagination, and most see heresy in every shadow. Dissenters meet creative ends. Heretics burn publicly as warning spectacles. Witches drown while crowds cheer. Blasphemers lose tongues before facing the rack. The church justifies this brutality by claiming to save souls, but the real lesson is absolute conformity. Witnessing punishment becomes its own twisted sermon, ensuring compliance through collective trauma. Relics and rituals deepen dependence. Your local church claims a splinter of the true cross or a saint's finger bone, objects you must pay to venerate. Pilgrimages to distant shrines drain savings while filling church coffers. When crops fail, priests sell blessed charms rather than addressing starvation. The cycle keeps peasants poor, frightened, and perpetually indebted to the very institution exploiting them. Transition couldn't be sharper for half the population. Women navigate this spiritual minefield while bearing extra constraints, considered biologically inferior and morally suspect by the same church that demands their obedience. Their suffering merits its own chapter in this litany of oppression, where even prayer offers no reprieve from crushing subjugation. If you're born female in Renaissance Europe, your life is already decided for you. By age 12, your father starts negotiating your marriage to a man twice your age. Betrothals often happened at this age, with pregnancies following soon after. Your opinion doesn't matter. This is about land, livestock, or political connections. You become property transferred from father to husband like a sack of grain. The wedding might happen the day you bleed for the first time. Whether you understand what's happening or not, domestic violence isn't just common, it's expected. Historical records show husbands had legal rights to, quote, correct their wives by any means necessary. Bruises are just part of married life. If you complain to the priest, he'll remind you that suffering builds character. Neighbors won't intervene. What happens in your home is your husband's business. The few women who try leaving often end up as beggars, which is just a slower form of death. Childbirth is Russian roulette with 5 chambers loaded. 1 in 5 women die bringing life into the world, screaming in pain without anesthesia or clean tools. Midwives try their best with dirty hands and folk remedies. If the baby gets stuck, they'll pull it out piece by piece with iron hooks. Hemorrhaging means you'll bleed out on the straw while bystanders pray. Surviving your first birth doesn't mean much. You'll likely go through this horror a dozen more times. Education isn't for you unless you're nobility, and even then it's limited. Convents might teach rich girls to read Latin prayers, but peasant women never touch a book. Literacy rates for women sit near zero by design. Knowledge is dangerous. It might give you ideas above your station. Your world consists of the kitchen, the fields, and the child bed. Questions earn beatings, not answers. Your body is never truly yours. Marital rape doesn't exist as a concept. Your husband takes what he wants when he wants it. Contraception is heresy, abortion is murder, and menopause is decades away if you live that long. You'll spend most of your adult life either pregnant or recovering from childbirth while still handling all domestic duties. Church teachings remind you this suffering is Eve's punishment for original sin. Work never ends, but you get no credit for it. While men plow fields, you're grinding grain, making cheese, tending gardens, weaving cloth, and watching children, often all at once. Your hands are permanently cracked from lye soap and cold water. A household would collapse without your labor, yet legally, you can't own property or keep wages. Everything belongs to your father or husband. Even widowhood offers no freedom. Without a man to protect you, you're vulnerable to every schemer in the village. Your late husband's family might take back your home, leaving you to beg or remarry quickly. Unmarried women face constant suspicion. People assume you're either a witch or a whore. Nuns in convents fare no better, living under rules that forbid speaking without permission and chaining them to rigid schedules. Verbal knowledge could get you killed. If you understand which plants ease pain or stop bleeding, someone might accuse you of witchcraft. A bad crop yield must be your evil eye. A neighbor's cow dies. Clearly you cursed it. Save a baby with your remedies today, and you might burn at the stake tomorrow for the same actions. Church officials write manuals on identifying witches, things like moles shaped like cats, or the ability to float when thrown in water. Your clothing is another prison. Layers of heavy wool crush your frame in every season. Corsets deform ribs to meet beauty standards. Head coverings are mandatory once married. Uncovered hair marks you as loose or unchaste. In some towns, prostitutes must wear striped hoods so men can identify them. Every garment reminds you of your place and limits movement, both physical and social. Domestic skills determine your worth. Can you spin thread fine enough, brew ale strong enough, preserve food well enough to avoid poisoning your family? Failure means beatings or starvation. No pressure, just the survival of your children resting on hands cracked from endless labor. Men can apprentice in trades, but you're stuck mastering 20 different survival skills with no formal training. The church justifies this oppression as natural law. Eve's sin means all women bear collective guilt. Priests rail against female vanity, while noble women coat their faces in lead powder. Sermons remind you that suffering is holy while your teeth rot from malnutrition. Even in death, you're judged differently. Gravestones praise men for accomplishments and women for chastity. Lesbians don't officially exist in Renaissance records, but that doesn't mean you're safe. Two women living together draws suspicion. Any intimate friendship risks accusations of unnatural acts. The punishment for sodomy, which included female relationships, could be burning. Your safest option is marrying some violent drunk and praying he doesn't kill you before 40. Noble women suffer differently, but no less. Their gold buys nicer cages, arranged marriages for political gain instead of goat money. They might read poetry while you gut fish, but their choices are equally constrained. Even queens bow to husbands and popes. Childbirth kills rich and poor alike because money can't buy sterile tools or modern medicine. Beauty standards are literally deadly. Wealthy women slather lead powder on their faces to look pale, slowly poisoning themselves. Parasitic worms help them stay fashionably thin. Corsets deform ribs until breathing becomes difficult. Peasant women ruin their eyes doing embroidery by dim candlelight to earn extra coins. Every class finds new ways to punish the female body. Your childhood in Renaissance Europe begins with a coin flip. Heads you survive, tails you don't. Nearly half of kids don't make it to age 5. You've probably already watched siblings die from fevers that modern medicine would cure with pills. There are no vaccines here, no antibiotics, not even basic understanding of germ theory. That cough keeping you up at night could be whooping cough, and no doctor can help you. Parents expect to lose children like we expect to lose socks. It's just part of life. You start working as soon as you can walk. Toddlers collect firewood while still unsteady on their feet. 5-year-olds mine livestock in fields with wolves. 7-year-olds turn spits in front of blazing hearths, their faces blistering from the heat. There's no such thing as child labor laws, just hungry mouths to feed and endless chores to do. Playtime is for wealthy kids who can afford the luxury of being useless. Your tiny hands are more useful than you realize. Little fingers thread needles for hours in dim light, ruining your eyesight by age 8. Small bodies crawl through tight spaces to clean chimneys, inhaling soot that will kill you by 20. Quick legs run messages through streets where predators wait. Children don't get paid for this work, just fed enough to keep going until the next task comes. Education isn't for you unless you're a rich boy. Most kids never learn to read or write. Your entire vocabulary consists of words for farm tools and household chores. The few village schools teach just enough Bible verses to keep you obedient. Girls especially stay ignorant. Why waste education on someone who'll just marry and breed? Your mind stays as malnourished as your body. Illnesses hit children hardest. Measles sweeps through villages, leaving graveyards full of small bodies. Diphtheria strangles you with your own swollen throat. Dysentery from dirty water drains your life in days. Parents can only watch and pray while you suffer. The lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky linger with rickets-twisted legs or tuberculosis-ravaged lungs. Even minor injuries turn deadly. That scraped knee from falling in the field could become a festering wound by morning. A broken bone might never heal right, leaving you crippled for life. Dental abscesses poison your blood because no one knows how to fix them. Every day is a gamble, where the stakes are your health, and the house always wins.
Food is scarce, and you get last pick. Men need strength for labor, so they eat first. Then women. Then children. By the time the pot reaches you, it's mostly broth with a few gristly scraps. Your belly stays constantly empty, your growth stunted from malnutrition. Some mornings you chew on bark, just to trick your stomach into feeling full. Bedtime offers no safety. You sleep piled with siblings on a moldy straw mat, breathing in dust that ruins your lungs. Fleas bite all night, leaving itchy red tracks across your skin. Winter cold seeps into bones still growing, making every joint ache. Pneumonia kills more kids than wolves ever could. It just takes longer. Rich kids don't have it much better. Their fancy clothes restrict movement and poison them with lead dyes. Tutors drill Latin into their heads for hours without breaks. Even their toys are dangerous. Lead soldiers they suck on, hobby horses that trip them downstairs. The wealthy just get nicer coffins when they inevitably join the statistics. Discipline breaks bones sometimes. A missed chore earns you beatings with willow switches. Talking back could get you locked in a closet overnight. Teachers strike your palms with rulers until they bleed. No one intervenes. This is how children learn obedience. Some parents go too far and accidentally kill their kids, but the law doesn't care. Your few toys are just small tools. A carved wooden spoon to practice cooking. A tiny rake for helping in gardens. Even play prepares you for drudgery. The concept of childhood as a special time of life simply doesn't exist here. You're just a half-sized worker who might not live long enough to become a full-sized one. Holidays provide the only breaks, and even those serve purposes. May Day lets you gather herbs until your fingers bleed. Christmas means helping prepare feasts you'll barely taste. Every festival involves work disguised as celebration. The rare moment of actual fun feels dangerous, like you're stealing something precious. Babyhood is the most dangerous time. Swaddling restricts your movement for hours, sometimes cutting off circulation. Wet nurses might feed you wine to keep you quiet. Cradles get placed near smoky fires where you breathe in toxins. 1 in 3 babies never sees their first birthday.
Mothers can't afford to grieve too long. Another pregnancy is already coming. Surviving to adolescence makes you old before your time. Your back aches from years of labor. Your teeth rot from malnutrition. You look 40 at 15, body worn out before it ever got a chance to grow properly. But congratulations, you beat the odds. Now, enjoy your reward. A lifetime of the same drudgery that already broke you. The rare, happy moments are bittersweet. Maybe a kind farmer lets you ride his donkey for 5 minutes. Perhaps you find wild berries and get to keep some instead of giving them all to your parents. These tiny sparks of joy barely light the darkness of your existence, but you cling to them anyway. They're all you have. Oddly, you don't know how miserable you are. This life is all you've ever known. The constant hunger, the endless work, the fear of illness, it's just normal. You have no frame of reference to understand that childhood could be anything other than suffering. This ignorance might be the only mercy you ever receive. Death eventually comes for everyone, but it loves children best. It takes them in fevers and fits, through accidents and plagues. Parents keep having babies, knowing half will die because they need the ones who survive. The cycle continues unbroken, generation after generation, until modern medicine finally arrives, centuries too late for you. But forget these grim thoughts. It's time for entertainment. The rare day off means watching prisoners get tortured in the town square, or bears getting torn apart by dogs. These spectacles remind you life could always be worse. At least you're not the one bleeding in the dirt today. Tomorrow might tell a different story. Your rare day off from back-breaking labor doesn't mean relaxation. It means watching prisoners get tortured in the town square. Public executions are the Renaissance equivalent of going to the movies, complete with food vendors selling snacks to spectators. The condemned don't just get hanged. They're drawn and quartered, burned alive, or broken on the wheel for maximum entertainment value. Crowds cheer as limbs get torn from sockets, their excitement growing with each scream. Historical records describe people bringing their children to these events, like some twisted family outing. Bear baiting is the other main attraction. A chained bear gets set upon by dogs while audiences bet on how long it will take for the animal to be torn apart. The bloodier the spectacle, the louder the applause. You might see a bull baited next, or possibly a donkey if large game is scarce. The stench of animal fear and sweat mixes with the metallic tang of fresh blood in the air. No one thinks this is cruel. It's just a normal Sunday afternoon. Gambling offers another way to pass time, assuming you're willing to risk your hands. Illegal dice games pop up in alleys, where a single bad roll could land you in front of the magistrate. Punishment is swift if you're caught. Losing fingers for your first offense, your whole hand for repeat violations. The same authorities who organize bear baiting will chop off your fingers for rolling bones. The hypocrisy doesn't strike anyone as odd. Drunken brawls provide free entertainment when official events aren't scheduled. Taverns empty out when a fight spills into the streets, spectators forming a circle around the combatants. Knives come out quickly, and no one intervenes until someone's bleeding in the dirt. Deaths happen regularly, but unless the victim is important, the authorities don't care. The body gets dragged to the side of the road while everyone returns to their drinks. Festivals offer slight variations on the same violent themes. Wrestling matches continue until someone can't stand. Archery contests accidentally kill bystanders who stray too close. People play hot cockles, slapping each other so hard that ears ring for days. The few actual games involve throwing heavy objects that crush fingers or cause concussions. Fun always comes with pain here. It's part of the experience. Public punishments blend seamlessly with entertainment. Gossips get locked in stocks while people throw rotten food at their faces. Thieves have hands chopped off in front of jeering crowds. Cheaters wear signs listing their crimes while being paraded naked through town. The source mentions the piercing of the tongue for liars, a creative punishment that draws huge audiences eager to witness the spectacle.
Even weddings involve brutality. Guests play Shoe the Mare, where they try nailing a horseshoe to a stump while blindfolded, usually hitting fingers instead. The happy couple gets pelted with heavy objects for good luck, leaving bruises that last longer than the marriage. Dancing turns into stampedes when too much ale gets consumed, and no event ends without someone getting trampled. The few non-violent pastimes still carry risk. Ice skating on frozen ponds might mean plunging through thin ice. Maypole dancing leads to broken ankles when feet tangle in ribbons. Caroling in winter risks frostbite while you sing for food that might contain sawdust. Leisure doesn't mean safety here. It just means different dangers than work provides. Children participate in these horrors without protection. They watch executions alongside adults, learning early how the world works. Parents bring infants to bear baitings, covering their ears against the roars of pain. There's no concept that young minds might be damaged by witnessing torture. Exposure to violence is considered character building. Sports resemble small-scale warfare more than games. Mob football matches span entire towns, with hundreds playing at once. The rules, if they exist at all, allow punching, kicking, and biting. Deaths happen regularly when frenzied crowds pile on top of fallen players. No one keeps score because everyone is too busy trying not to get trampled. These brutal pastimes reflect a world where life is cheap. People grown numb to everyday suffering crave stronger stimulation. The same neighbors who share bread with you will cheer as a thief gets flayed alive. Compassion is a luxury no one can afford in a world where you might be next week's entertainment. Take bread to feed your starving child? That's a hanging offense. Renaissance justice doesn't care why you broke the law, only that you did. Trials last minutes, not days. The local lord or magistrate decides your fate based on rumors and vibes. Evidence means nothing next to a nobleman's word. Your options? Confess quickly for a lighter punishment or maintain innocence and risk something worse. Most choose confession. Even when innocent, better to lose a hand than your life. Punishments specialize in creativity. Petty thieves get brands burned onto their cheeks, a permanent unemployment notice. Liars have tongues pierced with hot needles. Repeat offenders lose ears or hands. Execution methods vary by location, hanging for commoners, beheading for nobles if they're unlucky. The worst criminals face drawing and quartering, where horses pull your limbs apart while you scream. Crowds gather for these spectacles like it's festival day, picnicking while you die slowly. Nobles kill peasants without consequences. A lord can strike down any commoner for insolence and pay a small fine at most. Your life has a preset value based on class, maybe 20 shillings if you're lucky. Meanwhile, stealing bread costs you your right hand. The scales don't balance, they're rigged from the start. Justice wears silk robes while you stand barefoot before the court. Prisons are death sentences by waiting. You rot in a dungeon until trial, weeks or months in shit-filled darkness. Jailers charge for food and water, so impoverished prisoners starve slowly. Illness spreads fast among packed bodies with open sores. Many die before their day in court, which suits the system fine. Cellmates include everyone from murderers to debtors too poor to pay fines.
No segregation, just a free-for-all, where the strong prey on the weak. Church courts handle moral crimes, like adultery or heresy. Their punishments favor public humiliation, stocks for gossips, whipping posts for blasphemers. Divorce doesn't exist, but you can pay dearly for trying to escape an abusive marriage. Women found guilty of adultery walk barefoot through town in shifts so thin everyone sees everything. Repeat offenders get worse, sometimes permanent disfigurement, so no one will want them. Trial by ordeal tests God's judgment rather than facts. You might hold red-hot iron while walking 9 paces. If the wound heals cleanly in 3 days, you're innocent. They'll dunk you in blessed water, too. If you float, you're guilty and hanged. If you sink, you're innocent and probably drowned. These tests reliably produce guilty verdicts, which keeps conviction rates high and dissent low. Children face adult punishments from age 7. A hungry kid stealing apples gets lashed like anyone else. Some towns use weighted scales, steal goods worth 12 pence or more, and you hang regardless of age. Parents must watch their 10-year-olds get branded for petty theft because famine made them desperate. Nobles laugh at these spectacles while dining on roasted pheasant. Corruption leaks from every pore of the system. Judges accept bribes openly. Justice goes to the highest bidder. Guards sell prisoner food portions back to families who can pay. Clerks lose paperwork unless greased with coins. The poor suffer most because they can't buy favors. Even if innocent, you'll probably plead guilty just to avoid endless imprisonment, waiting for a trial that will never come. False accusations flourish like weeds. Neighbors report rivals for imaginary crimes to settle scores. A woman refusing a man's advances might find herself accused of witchcraft. Inheritance disputes get resolved by accusing the other heir of heresy. Once accused, proving innocence is nearly impossible. The system assumes guilt from the start. Your only hope is finding someone richer to vouch for you. Torture extracts confessions for major crimes. Strappado dislocates shoulders as you hang by bound wrists. The rack stretches joints until they pop. Waterboarding makes you beg for death. Guards use these tools daily, skilled at stopping just short of actually killing you. Most prisoners confess to anything after an hour in the torture chamber. Truth becomes irrelevant beside the pain. Law enforcement means brute force. Constables patrol with cudgels, not rule books. They arrest first and ask questions never. Resistance gets beaten out of you immediately. There's no accountability when they break your ribs during arrest. Who would you complain to? Their word always outweighs yours in court. Corruption runs deep here too. Many constables moonlight as thieves when off duty. The legal code changes based on who's in power today. Yesterday's minor offense becomes today's capital crime, depending on the noble in charge. Laws target specific groups arbitrarily. One year it's gypsies, the next year it's left-handed people. You can follow every rule and still wake up guilty of some new statute invented overnight. Stability doesn't exist here, just constant fear of slipping up. Think wealthy Renaissance nobles lived better? Their problems just came with silk drapes. That pale complexion aristocrats prized came from lead-based makeup eating through their skin. Women applied Venetian ceruse, a mix of lead and vinegar daily, unaware it caused nerve damage, infertility, and slow poisoning. Men weren't safe either. Their wigs contained lead powder to keep them white. Everyone traded health for fashion, their beauty regimen doubling as suicide method. Feasts killed as effectively as famine. Nobles gorged on spiced meats and sugared fruits, while peasants starved outside their gates. The rich developed gout from excessive port wine and fatty game, their swollen joints screaming with every limping step. Heart attacks struck men in their 30s, thanks to salt-preserved diets that would make modern cardiologists faint. Diabetes, called sugar sickness, ravaged sweet-toothed courtiers unaware their treats were killing them. Medicine poisoned them faster than disease. Doctors prescribed mercury for everything from syphilis to melancholy, dosing aristocrats into tremors and madness. Historians found noble hair samples containing lethal mercury levels, treatment deadlier than the illnesses. Enemas and bloodletting weakened already toxic systems. Wealth bought more interventions, not better health. The more you could pay physicians, the quicker they killed you. Political security didn't exist. That goblet of wine at dinner might contain arsenic from a rival. Noble children learned early to watch for tasters collapsing mid-meal. Assassination attempts weren't rare, they were occupational hazards. Italian city-states averaged one successful noble poisoning per year. Even Pope Alexander VI allegedly died from mistakenly drinking wine meant for a guest. Trust no one, especially family. Sons poisoned fathers for titles. Wives eliminated husbands for younger replacements. Women's luxuries carried extra risks. Tight corsets deformed ribs, causing miscarriages and oxygen deprivation. Lead makeup caused stillbirths when it didn't kill the mother first. Sumptuary laws regulated clothing. Wear ermine you weren't entitled to and lose a hand. Noble women endured these hazards while producing heirs like factory farms, often dying in childbirth, just as peasants did. Their silk veils hid the same suffering. Hygiene myths made things worse. Nobles believed water spread disease, so they rarely bathed. Perfumes covered months of accumulated stench in elaborate wigs crawling with lice. Velvet gowns stuffed with fleas couldn't be washed without ruining them. Scratch beneath the gem-encrusted surfaces, and you'd find the same filth plaguing peasants, just more expensively scented. That lavish palace room probably had a chamber pot festering under the bed. Childhood offered no refuge. Noble children wore miniature torture devices, tight swaddling, lead-lined gowns, stiff collars that prevented turning their heads. Wet nurses addicted them to wine-soaked pacifiers for quiet. Tutors beat Latin conjugations into them for hours daily. Healthier than peasant kids? Maybe. But ledgers show noble families still buried half their children before adulthood, despite all that wealth. Their homes were gilded prisons. Castle stone walls seeped dampness, causing chronic lung ailments. Drafty halls left even fireside dwellers shivering. Tapestries swayed over moldy walls in rooms echoing with coughs. Servants stole. Spies listened at doors. Alliances shifted overnight. That ancestral portrait staring down at dinner, its subject likely died choking on spoiled pheasant. Entertainment courted disaster. Jousting lances pierced eyes through helmet slits. Hunting parties drowned, crossing frozen streams. Banquet floor show? Dwarves boxing bears until the animal got loose. Even dancing proved fatal in floors slick with spilled wine and grease. Lists of noble deaths read like bad comedy. Crushed by runaway carriage horses, stabbed by mistresses in fits of passion, boiled alive in mistaken steam bath accidents. Legal protections only went so far. That judgment against a rival nullified when enemy armies burned the courthouse. Inheritances disappeared when kings borrowed funds indefinitely. A pope could annul your marriage and seize lands by morning. Highest ranks still kneeled to monarchs who whimsically exiled or executed them. Peasants feared local lords feared kings, and kings feared poisoning by their own kitchens. Seasonal suffering didn't discriminate. Winter froze noble pipes while peasants died simpler deaths. Summer brought plague to marble halls as easily as thatched huts. Army service meant dysentery in muddy camps regardless of title. Travel? Coach accidents killed rich and poor alike when wheels hit potholes at speed. Weather ignored bank balances when flooding cities or burning crops. Their greatest privilege was delusion. Nobles believed wealth insulated them from Renaissance realities, while Mercury ate their brains. They commissioned flattering portraits as syphilis melted their noses. They drafted harsh laws against peasant crimes while bribing judges for their own sins. The system favored them, yes, but couldn't save them from lead-lined wine cups or vengeful nephews.
What's left of them now? Some crumbling portraits showing fashionable pallor that was literally poisoning them. A few treasured letters complaining of gout between political intrigues. Empty castles where tapestries still smell faintly of decades' worth of unwashed noble stench. Their world seemed untouchable, right until the moment plague or poison reminded them otherwise. At least peasants knew they suffered. Nobles died confused why their gold couldn't stop fevers, pretending until the end that wearing emeralds prevented seizures. Their physicians bled them, their priests absolved them, and their biographers lied for them. But in the dark, their guts ached like everyone else's when bad meat struck. Winter isn't just cold. It's a slow death sentence. Your home offers no real shelter against the freezing temperatures. Gaps in the walls let icy drafts cut through the room like knives. The fire barely makes a dent in the cold, its heat swallowed by the stone walls and high ceilings. You sleep fully dressed under every blanket you own, your breath visible in the air. Frost forms on the inside of your windows. At night, you shiver under layers of wool, praying you'll wake up. Many don't. Historical records call it death by exposure, but really, it's death by neglect. Society failing to provide even basic protection from the elements. Summer swings to the opposite extreme. Heat turns your home into an oven. Stale air thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and rotting food. Flies swarm through openings where winter drafts once crept in. The streets become breeding grounds for disease, sewage baking in the sun until the stench makes your eyes water. There's no relief, no cold drinks, no fans, no shade that doesn't reek of sweat and decay. Heat strokes and fevers pick people off just as effectively as winter cold. Crop failures happen so often they're practically scheduled. A late frost kills the seedlings. Too much rain drowns the roots. A dry spell withers the stalks before grain can form. When harvests fail, famine follows. Slow, grinding starvation that leaves you weak and desperate. Wild food sources vanish as everyone else has the same idea. Markets inflate prices to obscene levels, knowing you'll pay anything to survive. Historical accounts describe years where a third of Europe starved. You might dig up dead animals for soup or chew bark to fill your stomach until that runs out too. Disease rides in on every season. Winter brings pneumonia, the damp cold seeping into lungs already weakened by malnutrition. Summer ushers in dysentery, with contaminated water spreading through towns like clockwork. Plague doesn't care about the weather. It arrives whenever rats get restless. No one connects the dots between filth and illness, so no one stops it. Churches blame divine wrath.
doctors prescribe uses potions. Meanwhile, whole families die in their beds, their bodies collected by carts that make daily rounds. Cities become death traps when temperatures soar, streets fester with refuse, the heat accelerating decay until the air itself feels toxic. Crowded homes turn into furnaces, pushing people outside where disease waits in shared wells and food stalls. The wealthy flee to country estates, leaving everyone else to suffocate in the stench. Children collapse from heat exhaustion. The elderly die in their sleep. And when storms finally break the heat, they flood streets already choked with sewage, creating new breeding grounds for mosquitoes. Homes offer no retreat from the weather. Winter drafts make walls sweat with condensation, soaking bedding and clothes in damp that never dries. Summer turns thatch roofs into insect hives, their constant buzzing following you inside. There's no insulation, no ventilation designed for comfort, just structures that barely meet the definition of shelter. You patch gaps with straw and mud, knowing the next storm will undo your work. Even small weather shifts cause major suffering. A cool summer sounds pleasant until your crops fail from lack of sun. A mild winter means early thaw and floods that wash away entire fields. The weather doesn't need to be extreme to kill. Inconsistency does the job just fine. One bad season ripples into years of scarcity as seed stocks dwindle and livestock die. Recovery takes longer than the intervals between disasters. The rich don't escape either. Their stone castles trap winter cold in walls that never warm. Summer heat reflects off their tiled floors, turning great halls into sweat boxes. Their gardens bloom while peasants starve, but no amount of wealth stops malaria or stops food from spoiling without refrigeration. They suffer in better furniture, but they still suffer. Children and the elderly die first. Kids lose body heat too fast in winter, their small frames unable to fight off hypothermia. The old succumb to pneumonia after weeks of damp clothes and wet bedding. Summer preys on the weak just as efficiently. Heat exhaustion doesn't care if you're already malnourished. Families bury multiple generations in the same bad year, their plots dug into frozen or sun-baked earth depending on the season. There's no forecasting, no warnings. Storms arrive without notice, burying homes in snow or flattening crops with hail. Rivers flood without gauges to measure rising water. You find out the weather's turned deadly when your roof collapses or your fields wash away. Survival depends on luck as much as preparation. And most are out of luck. Animals suffer alongside humans. Livestock freeze in barns barely warmer than the outdoors. Drought leaves cattle starving or drinking from contaminated ponds. Dogs turn feral, scavenging corpses when owners die. Even rats succumb when winters drag on. Ships arrive with hold. Church holidays are your only escape from the grind, and you make them count. For one day, you can pretend life isn't misery. The rules say you have to attend Mass, but the real celebration starts when the priest finishes talking. Everyone's already drunk by noon, including the priest. Kids sip weak beer alongside adults because the water would kill them faster. There's no designated driver, no moderation, just the bliss of forgetting for a few hours. Meat appears in quantities you haven't seen since last festival. That scrawny chicken you've been saving, it's stewing in a communal pot with everyone else's meager contributions. The scent of actual cooked food, not just gruel, makes your stomach roar. You'll pay for this binge tomorrow when your shrunken stomach rebels, but today, you'll jam in as much as possible. The wealthy might have roast boar, but your scrappy feast tastes like luxury after months of moldy bread. Chaos starts small, a drunken wrestling match here, a brawl over dice there. Then someone brings out the blindfolds for hot cockles where people take turns slapping the blinded player until they guess who hit them. Cheeks redden, Noses bleed and everyone laughs like it's the funniest thing they've ever seen. Children dart between legs, swiping leftover food while adults are distracted. The village idiot does a handstand and vomits. Crowds cheer. Hierarchies dissolve in the haze of alcohol. Normally you'd bow to the local lord, but today you might punch his cousin in a friendly scrap and get away with it. Servants mock their masters without punishment. Women speak louder, men cry openly, and for once no one pretends everything's fine. This is your one chance to scream grievances into the wind before tomorrow's grind resumes. The church allows it because rebellion needs occasional steam vents. People die at these things. Someone always falls into the fire or chokes on laughter while swallowing ale. Last year, a man ruptured his stomach eating too much salted pork. The year before, two drunkards stabbed each other over a gambling debt. You'll dig graves tomorrow, but tonight you drink to their memories. Death is ever present anyway. Might as well toast it properly. Music kicks up as light fades. Someone produces a reed pipe. Another slaps a drum. Dancing is clumsy and wild, more flailing than art. Shoes stomp through mud and vomit, spreading the mess everywhere. Couples sneak off to barns, some married, some not. Children collapse where they stand, passed out mid-meal. The elderly sip their portions slowly, knowing they won't get another until next festival. Morning arrives like a hammer to the skull. Your head pounds from cheap ale. Your stomach heaves from unfamiliar richness. The square is littered with bodies still sleeping it off. A dog licks spilled gravy near the ashes of last night's fire. Reality seeps back in, back to hunger, back to filth, back to knowing your place. The Lord's steward already walks through town, switching awake anyone slow to resume work. These festivals aren't optional. They're survival. Without these breaks, the sheer weight of daily suffering would snap minds like twigs. The church knows this, which is why they schedule just enough revelry to keep you from revolting. Days like this are why you endure the rest. Glimpses of joy so sharp, they make the pain between them almost worth it. The wealthy have their own version, fancier, but just as desperate. Their feasts feature exotic spices and musicians instead of reed pipes. They gamble with gold instead of chicken bones, but their laughter rings just as hollow. They're still drinking lead-poisoned wine from jeweled cups, still trapped in gilded cages. Their entertainments might look refined, but the desperation underneath smells the same. Children experience festivals differently. For them, it's not escapism, it's normal life. They don't remember a time before hunger or pain. They gorge alongside adults, unaware this isn't how people always eat. They mimic drunken dances, not realizing their parents are trying to forget. By next festival, some of these kids will be gone, claimed by fevers or accidents, but today they squeal with joy, stuffing faces with stolen sweets. Preparations for the next holiday begin immediately. Brewing takes weeks, so leftover grains get set aside for next time. Mead ferments in hidden crocks. The scrawniest pig gets fattened, relatively speaking, for slaughter. These small preparations become lifelines during bleak months, tiny lights at the end of tunnels. The church approves because it keeps the flock docile between sermons. You return to work with aching head and hands. But something has shifted. The memory of full bellies and unchecked laughter lingers. It won't last. Nothing good does. But for now, the grind feels lighter. You price. Crushing hangovers, maybe bruises from that wrestling match, possibly a winter cold caught from dancing in the rain. Worth it. Always worth it. Because next week, when you're back to gnawing moldy bread in the pre-dawn dark, you'll close your eyes and remember the taste of meat, the burn of ale, the dizzy spin of dancing. For months, Those memories will be the only sweetness in your life. The church gives you these days, not from kindness, but because even beasts need occasional rewards to keep pulling the plow. Tomorrow, the cycle starts again. Fields won't plow themselves. Children need feeding. Winter's coming. But next festival is already on the calendar, counting down like a lifeline. You'll survive until then. You always do. You think you could survive the Renaissance? Your hands would give out by lunchtime. Those fingers used to tapping screens wouldn't last an hour gripping a wooden hoe in a freezing field. Modern tools weigh ounces. Renaissance tools take 2 hands just to lift. Your back, accustomed to ergonomic chairs, would spasm from hauling water buckets before noon. Factory workers today perform repetitive motions. Peasants swung heavy iron tools until their palms split open. There's no OSHA here. When your scythe slips and takes off a finger, the foreman just kicks you aside and calls for the next starving replacement. Your immune system wouldn't stand a chance. That tiny paper cut from opening your mail, in Renaissance Europe, it's a death warrant. Without antibiotics, infections spread unchecked. Barber surgeons use the same rusty hooks on patients they just pulled teeth from. Your modern vaccinations protect against nothing here. Measles, smallpox, and plague kill indiscriminately. Even wealthy nobles die from infected hangnails. Your clean 21st century microbiome has never fought off dysentery from well water contaminated with human waste. Historical accounts describe people dying from ingrown toenails turning septic. Mental resilience would crumble faster than your body. No antidepressants for the crushing despair of losing half your children. No therapy for the trauma of watching neighbors burn as witches. The constant fear of starvation, violence, divine wrath would break minds accustomed to relative safety. Today's anxiety disorders would spiral into full breakdowns when facing Renaissance justice for minor infractions. Your concept of personal space disappears when entire families sleep in one lice-infested bed. Privacy doesn't exist. Not in homes, not in confessionals, not even in your own thoughts. Monitored for heresy. Dental pain alone would destroy you. Modern cavities get numbed and filled in minutes. Here, toothaches drive people to suicide. Your first molar rage means an unwashed iron hook yanking the tooth while 3 men hold you down. No anesthesia, just raw agony and bone fragments left in your jaw. By 30, your remaining teeth resemble something pulled from a haunted crypt, according to contemporary descriptions. Every meal becomes torture as you gum stale bread with exposed nerve endings. Clothing would be your first mutiny. That itchy wool sweater your aunt gave you? Renaissance garb makes it feel like cashmere. Your single outfit, worn daily for years, scratches like burlap soaked in vinegar. Layers of unwashed wool chafe skin raw, while lice nest in the seams. There are no washing machines, just a river that doubles as the town sewer. Your shoes? Rough leather that never softens, rubbing blisters that quickly turn infected. Fashion isn't about style. It's about surviving elements that want you dead. Violence would shock your system. Modern crime rates seem quaint compared to Renaissance streets, where brawls turn deadly over dice games. Seeing a neighbor lose hands for stealing bread would haunt dreams that used to fret over credit scores. There's no 911 to call when bandits attack, just whatever rusty knife you sleep with under the straw. Your modern aversion to blood would get you killed in a world where butcher shops double as surgery theaters.
Climate control withdrawal would wreck you.
No central heating means winter nights spent shivering in damp wool that never dries. Summer turns your home into a clay oven, with mosquitoes breeding in the wastewater outside. You can't escape. Work happens in the same fields, whether it's snowing or 100 degrees. Weather isn't small talk here. It's a life or death report. That light jacket weather you enjoy, it's pneumonia season here. Religious oppression would choke you. Imagine every thought being monitored for heresy. Your priest demands details of impure thoughts during confession. Missing Mass means public whipping. Today's religious tolerance disappears in a world where the church taxes your chickens and controls your sex life. Question doctrine. That's a one-way ticket to the torture chamber. Your modern mind craves questions. Here, they burn questioners alive. Nutritional whiplash would weaken you. That organic diet you follow? Try months of pottage tasting like wet burlap sprinkled with sadness. Your gut microbiome, used to probiotics and fiber, would revolt at rancid meat and moldy grains. Modern calorie counts seem hilarious when you're literally starving between harvests. Vitamin deficiencies twist children's bones while you watch helplessly.
Medical care would finish you off.
That aspirin you pop for headaches? Here they drill holes in your skull to release evil spirits. Fever means mercury poisoning disguised as treatment. Childbirth happens on the same flea-infested straw where animals sleep. Your knowledge of germ theory becomes psychological torture as you watch doctors wipe surgical tools on their filthy aprons between patients. The psychological toll makes everything worse. Today's bad day might be traffic or a rude barista. Renaissance bad days mean burying children or choosing which body part to lose to frostbite. Chronic pain becomes background noise. Hope isn't sustainable when every season brings new ways to die. Your modern coping mechanisms, therapy, medication, leisure activities, don't exist here. Survival requires accepting horrors as normal. Yet people endured this. That's the disturbing part. They adapted to constant pain, loss, and deprivation in ways we can't fathom. Their resilience wasn't special, it was necessity. Our modern comforts have made us weaker, but also more humane. Maybe that's the real takeaway. Progress shouldn't just be about surviving, but living in ways that don't brutalize our bodies and minds. So next time you complain about slow Wi-Fi or a cold coffee, remember, you wouldn't last a single Renaissance dawn. Your smartphone-addicted fingers would freeze around a plow. Your sterilized gut would surrender to the first moldy meal. Your mental health would shatter under relentless hardship. We're the weakest generation they've ever seen, and that's actually a good thing. It means we've created a world where such extreme resilience isn't required. The real challenge now? Not taking that for granted. The Renaissance gave us breathtaking art, but behind every masterpiece lies forgotten suffering. That vibrant blue in Michelangelo's fresco, mined by peasants inhaling lapis lazuli dust in Afghan caves. The rich reds made from mercury that poisoned the artists. For every angel painted on a chapel ceiling, thousands died from plague in the streets below. Next time you admire a Renaissance painting, picture the starving worker who ground its pigments between coughs. Let me know in comments, would the tooth extractions break you first, or the chamber pots dumped from windows? Dim the lights, hit subscribe, and remember, history's beauty came at a brutal cost.